On this episode of 1RBC, Jedi Fallen Order has been unveiled, the Nintendo Labo VR has been released, and some games have gotten VR support tacked on. We have the first details on the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation Network generated over $12.5 billion in the 2019 financial year, the PS4 having sold a lifetime of 96.8 million units, and this is 1RBC Gaming Weekly. Hold the weekly. First off, the PlayStation 5. In an article from Wired, PlayStation 4 lead system architect Mark Cerny spilled details on the upcoming console. It'll boast an 8-core AMD Ryzen CPU with the new 7nm Zen microarchitecture, along with a GPU with support for ray tracing, a feature that has only recently made its way into the PC gaming space. In case you're wondering what ray tracing is, it's an advanced technique for processing light in a 3D rendered scene that calls for a lot of power. The increased power of the PlayStation 5 will be enough to push 8K graphics to all 5 people with big enough televisions. That's very exciting for the high-end players, but considering the fact that most people are still using 1080p displays, that might not be a huge selling point for a few years. Increasingly powerful graphics processing, while cool, isn't impressive in and of itself. However, that's something we've seen with every console generation. Cerny has also had plenty to say about upgrading the audio on the PlayStation 5. While there wasn't a substantial technological shift between the audio of the PS3 and PS4, the goal is for the PS5 to support 3D audio right out of the box. This is different from simple stereo and less complicated than surround sound. With the magic of additional processing power being tossed at an audio solution, the PlayStation 5 will be able to deliver a 3D audio experience through television speakers. Let me put it this way. You can be sitting in front of your TV and hear a sound that seems as though it's coming from behind you, even though you don't have a speaker back there. The new machine will also ship with an SSD or solid-state drive, a substantial upgrade to the mechanical hard drive that shipped in the PS4 and Xbox One. In case you're not familiar with SSDs, what you should know is that these solid-state drives are a much faster way of storing data than old-fashioned, noisy, spinning hard drives, but they've also been significantly more expensive up until recently. With an SSD, the PlayStation 5 will have significantly reduced load times for big games. We also know that the PS5 will boast backwards compatibility with PS4 titles and PSVR hardware thanks to shared architecture, something that the PS4 did not have with the PS3, something that's been a major selling point for the Xbox One, which became the only current-gen console with the feature. When is the PS5 coming? According to the latest intel, it won't be out during the next 12 months, so we might see it November 2020. Might. So, that's everything that we know about the PS5. Now, what do we want from the PS5? Personally, I'd love to see backwards compatibility with all the PlayStation consoles. I don't think it'd be so hard to include a slot for Vita cartridges, and maybe some sort of UMD reading accessory could be developed to create the ultimate PlayStation. Okay, too far? Too far. Nonetheless, since it's already been confirmed that the PS5 will have a disk drive, full compatibility with the PS1 through 5 doesn't seem impossible. Third parties have in recent years made fantastic progress with PS3 emulation, and there's no way the PS5 won't have enough power for PS1 or PS2 emulation. Now the ball is in Sony's court as to if they'll let their most dedicated customers with huge disc-based collections enjoy their games on the PS5, or if they'll just try and double down on profit by making the games purchasable only as digital downloads. Personally, I primarily game on PC, but would pick up the PS5 in a heartbeat if it came with 4 generations of back compatibility. It'd be hard to pass on that. What do you want out of the PlayStation 5? Hit us up on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool. We'd be happy to hear your thoughts and feature them on our next episode. At long last, EA is publishing a proper, story-based Star Wars game. Jedi Fallen Order is set to be released on the Xbox One, PS4, and PC on November 15th, 2019, and is set shortly after Star Wars Episode 3. You play as Cal Kestis, a Padawan who survived Order 66 and now needs to complete his Jedi training, and avoid being detected by the Empire. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is currently in development by Respawn Entertainment, the studio responsible for the Titanfall games as well as Apex Legends. Personally, I'm looking forward to this one. While I doubt it'll be 1313, it feels like we've been waiting far too long for this sort of Star Wars game, especially after the disappointing stories in the new Battlefront games. In PC gaming news, NVidia has released the GTX 1650, a GPU that's not really meant to be compared with their top-of-the-line offerings. It's a card with 4GB of RAM that doesn't require any more power than is offered by your PCIe slot. That's 75 watts in case you were wondering. If you want to push 120 frames per second at 4K with ray tracing, this isn't the card for you. That said, maybe you're on a tight budget and thinking about upgrading a workstation PC that never had a graphics card in the first place, or you're restricted to a card with particularly low power consumption and a low profile, and maybe you want to upgrade your old GTX 1050. If that's the case, it may be worth checking out the GTX 1650. That said, you can get similar performance from certain older and larger cards, such as AMD's 4GB RX 570, which costs less than the 1650. PC building enthusiasts are calling this card a blunder. What do you think? Has NVIDIA made a mistake targeting budget builders with a card that's offering less than the competition for more money? Let us know at OneRuleBeCool on Twitter. Nintendo has released a new Labo kit that brings virtual reality to the platform. After giving fans the old, "will neither confirm nor deny," when asked about VR for the Switch, they've brought us a complex high-tech virtual reality experience that brings us deeper into the future of... Just kidding, guys, it's paper. In case you're unfamiliar with Nintendo Labo, what you should know is that it's their line of cardboard toy kits for the Switch. Labo items are used with augmented reality type games. Now, it sounds gimmicky, but thus far, response to Labo has been both positive and profitable for Nintendo. With the launch of the Labo's VR kits, now the Xbox One is the only current-gen console without any sort of virtual reality system. To be fair, the Labo VR kits are a lot more like Google Cardboard. They're not meant for lengthy play sessions. That said, it's definitely a step in the right direction for Nintendo, and thus far, everybody seems to love the wild cardboard Labo toys. Have you been playing with Labo, and if so, what do you think of it? Hit us up on Twitter at OneRuleBeCool. Wait a sec, we've got more Nintendo VR news. As it turns out, they've added VR support for 2 of their games, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. From what I've heard, these aren't really stellar experiences. Neither game was built with virtual reality in mind, meaning that while some aspects of each game may be cool in VR, the overall experiences will be rough. Some of the impressions I've heard of Breath of the Wild VR are that it's nausea-inducing and doesn't suit the game's overall style well. Super Mario Odyssey, on the other hand, has 4 levels built with VR in mind, and while they're not perfect, it's not quite so disorienting as Zelda in VR. It's more like peering down at a toy set, rather than being tossed into a world you weren't meant to inhabit. That said, this VR support comes as part of a free update for both games, and is probably meant to be thought of as more of a proof of concept, one made public and playable, than anything else. The Labo VR headset doesn't even have a strap. Nintendo designed it for a good time, not a long time. Risk of Rain 2, released in early access on PC back in March, received an update roadmap forecasting what's coming to the game in the coming months. The original game was a fantastic fast-paced roguelike about landing on an alien planet and fighting for survival. The sequel kicks it up a notch, taking the game from 2D to 3D, and the players have received the in-development title quite well thus far. As a fan of the original, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the sequel. Here's hoping they hit their spring 2020 launch window. In game releases this week, Imperator Rove came to PC. Developed by Paradox, it's a grand strategy game set in the early days of Rome, from Alexander the Great's successors to the Empire's founding. While the premise is pretty exciting, thus far the reception to the game itself has been pretty negative. Grand strategy game fans are disappointed by the game's lack of content and shallow gameplay. For what's supposed to be a grand strategy game, that's a recipe for disaster. Have you been playing Imperator Rome, and if so, what do you think about it? Hit us up on Twitter at OneWillBeCool. Imperator Rome is available on Mac, Windows, and Linux. In somewhat more positive strategy news, as part of its one-year anniversary, it's been announced that Frostpunk is coming to console. The game sold over 1.4 million copies in its first year on PC, a real hit for the Poland-based 11-bit studios. The game's premise is pretty fascinating, as it's a strategy game in which your goal is to survive a frozen apocalypse as the leader of the world's last city. Unlike other, more lighthearted city-building games, Frostpunk is serious, dark, and calls on players to make hard choices to help their population survive. Finally, we leave you with a reveal trailer for Planet Zoo, a new zoo management game currently in development by Frontier Developments, the same studio behind Planet Coaster. Now, as a big fan of Sim Safari, I'm looking forward to seeing where this game goes, which apparently features careful breeding of your animals as a key mechanic. While it's a tycoon game, it's going to have a big focus on environmentalism. That's it for this week's episode. For all the greatest game news, reviews, interviews, and more, be sure to check out at OneWillBeCool on Twitter and Instagram. Check out 9-Bit on Roku for even more great shows.
Gonna build a daydream from a little home. Gonna push that